Muchas gracias por la presentación. Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Antes que nada,
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank
por contar este año nuevamente conmigo.
I'd like to thank INCIBE for inviting me this year, and my colleague responsible for the development area. So what are we going to see today? Well, we're going to look at cybercrime detection in daytime and nighttime. This is the internet we know, the two sides of the same coin. On the one hand, we have the surface web, what we all use, work, leisure, whatever, and then we also have the other side, which is not as clear, darkness, and what we call deep web. And on both sides we see cybercrimes, and this is what we're going to tell you of today precisely. Those activities, those criminal activities that happen on these two sides of the coin, and how in INCIBE we investigate this crime, and how we devote tools in order to fight these criminal activities. Very often we confuse terms of surface web, deep web, and dark web, and this is what I'd like to clarify with these slides. Surface web are those parts in internet that are accessible and that indexed with the main searches that or engines that we use, Bing, Yahoo, etc. And then the deep web that's accessible but is not indexed by these engines. For instance, the content of your email account or the information stored in your corporate networks. And finally, the dark web, what is restricted and non-indexed, not indexed, because can access the content of the net itself. So we need to use a specific web freenet clients or other. So if we look at the year 2017, we may highlight some events such as everything that happened related to ransomware or information leaks or issues related to botnets. And this is what my colleague is going to start talking to you about. Thank you very much. I'm going to tell you about security issues that we've seen in 2017 and how they're related to the subject we're treating, as to whether they happen in daylight on the surface web or the dark web. Let's begin with ransomware. I'm sure that you've all heard about WannaCry, Petya, etc., and then other things that are less known but that have also affected our companies and bank institutions. Even though it's true that in general they've affected Eastern European countries, mostly Russia. What do these ransomware or this ransomware share? Well, the people that are managing this cybercrime are trying to hide behind anonymous networks like Tor. Here we have examples of the typical panels in order to rescue the files that have been encrypted in computers. And what they share, what they have in common, is that in order to access them, you have to access the Tor network. They're trying to hide their activities behind the Tor net. This is something that's happening in daylight, in clarity, and they are hiding behind Tor in order to hide, thanks to the anonymity offered by these networks. And there's also the information leaks. Every year, more and more information is being released from different sources. We have statistics here how since 2013 over 9 billion files have been leaked or released from information systems, or they've been compromised. And the true problem here has to do with these statistics we see underneath, and that is that only 4% of that information was encrypted. This means that the rest of the information that was stolen was publicly accessible. Here we see the evolution in 2005, 2006, where we started seeing lots of information theft, but we see that these balls start growing. The amount of information that cyber criminals are taking from companies is increasing 2009, 2012, until we reach the explosion in the last 3 years, where there's such an amount of registers that they don't even fit in not so much crime that we see, but they've also got a component of a deep web, a lot of information from bank accounts and credit cards. All this information is sold in the deep web through networks such as Tor, that I'm sure you all know of. And something that we've seen this year is the botnets. You may say, well, this is no new malicious activity, because we've known about botnets for many years now. What do these things share? Things like Mirai, Reaper, so they try to exploit the IoT, Internet of Things. Right now we see an exponential increase of internet, of devices connected to the internet, and in the end they are being compromised by these botnets. And as you know, in the case of Mirai, last year, for instance, many companies, Google, etc., were affected, and they can be used for any attack, from spam campaigns, malware distribution, but also in order to attack many different organizations. The DDoS attacks, see them in the surface web, but these cyber crimes put in the deep web. If we want a DDoS attack, all we need to do is to go into one of those well-known Tor services, and with a small price, you can buy these things. What sort of cybercrime appear in daylight, so to speak, in the surface net? I'm going to tell you about an investigation that happened in the summer 2017, because this is something that appeared in the light. This affected .es domains, that is Spanish domains. The idea was to reach out to the maximum number of users, and I'm going to tell you about this investigation and what it was about. The origin. Well, first of all, it tells you about a fraudulent .es domain that was impersonating a famous Spanish brand. This was in the internet, in the ZenCart platform, and what it does is to set up a virtual store. And the crime itself, theft of credit cards. While we were doing this research, this investigation, we asked ourselves, are there more .es domains that are carrying out the same type of activity? And that's when we started carrying out a parallel investigation. Okay? So out of the .es domains so far, out of all of them, 11,000, we started looking for deployed ZenCart. So we obtained 11,000 domains with ZenCart, and we started pulling from that and started comparing it with the initial domain in the research. Some of these domains are detected with names like, for instance, lawyer in Marbella, .breeder.es, or save and light car rental, beauty and health, and army.com.es and policeonline.es. These are just some of them. So the thing was, what did all these domains share? What did they all have in common? Let's see. For instance, Arlo in Marbella sells some very wonderful shoes with incredible discount, 75%, 80% discount. And if we move to the next one, to Adobe Reader, that we all relate to a different sort of thing, you can see some very nice shoes also at very low prices. And ADSL, free ADSL, what do? They sell sunglasses, sunshades, Christmas time, etc. So here things are starting to become suspicious. And for instance, save in electricity, women's clothes with good sales, car rental, shoes too. Restaurante El Cortijo restaurant, snow equipment, skis, bags, etc. Here they have different types of material, women's bathing suits, T-shirts, etc. Army.com.es, sweatshirts, and the last one, onlinepolice.es. What are they going to sell? They sell shoes. But here it says there's something that doesn't fit here, and we start then investigating. And the first thing we say is, who can investigate this in Spain? So from anywhere in the world you can request domains as long as there's links in Spain. For instance, legal persons in Spain, or individuals, or legal or persons or individuals who are related culturally speaking or socially speaking or economically with Spain. I didn't know much about this, so I wanted to look into this, and I wanted to answer the following questions. What are the legal requirements in order to open up an online store in Spain? So here we came up with a smaller group, and following the first meet the law, where you have to give information such as the name, the number of the registry where the business is included, or data protection.
El fichero de la Agencia Española de Protección de Datos y notificar al usuario de qué, dónde y cómo se.
The idea is to notify the user of where these data are going to be stored, and other things like the famous cookies policy and secure payment, legal things. So first of all, we started doing this manually, and then we did it in an automated way, in an automatic way. So let's analyze these domains and see if they meet these legal requirements. Name of the company, registry, where it is, and cookies policy. That was missing also. And privacy policy was either non-existent or in English, or the wording was strange. LOPD, nothing regarding where the information taken from users was stored. Legal things, nothing. And then payment procedure, credit cards, and nothing about secure payment. But there was more to it. These sites affect more brands, not only Spanish ones, but foreign ones, many of which I'm sure you know of. Many of these domains were registered by 5 persons who are authorized to register companies in Spain, and all of these companies said they had been registered by these 5 people. ASN, Istanbul, EC. The whole point to these ASNs, AGI hosting, and also the ports, 21, 25, 80, 110, 3,306. And we also realized that domains, there was subscriptions and other signing out, always in different IP addresses, taking into account the cost this entails. Some of these sites have presented RSS services, and with this we were suspecting that there was a fraud. Many of these email addresses were related to fraudulent activities. So the question was, who's behind all this? Who do you think is behind all this? Following question that we'll try and answer. We find these certificates, and that take us to this server. When starting to do the analysis, we see China right away. We start analyzing this, and apart from these panels, these displays, I don't know whether this was 10,000 or 20,000. We also find characters that made us start being suspicious about the country that all this came from. When looking at administrative contacts, we see these different references, 163.com, Yenet, foxmail.com, and many of them led us to Chinese domains, and many of which were fake addresses. So we started looking at the platform security. We said, well, since you've set up all this, let's see if you've really done a good job, at least from the point of view of security. SQLs, SQLs had vulnerable addresses. We start looking at them all, and we see lots of vulnerability. The web server and Apache, that also presents a lot of vulnerability. Why should we worry? Why worry about security? Come on. So summarizing, what do all these domains share? First of all, they don't comply with legal requirements. Name of the product, nothing to do with the product as such, because they always speak about shoes, clothes, subscribing, unsubscribing. The administrative contact was fake, or the domain pointed at an Asian thing. No digital certificate in order to do the purchase, and here's the summary. We automate all this. Out of the 11,000 domains we detected, we see that 94% were potentially malicious. So we did the report in order to submit it to those who are responsible for this. But there's always, what if I pull from these different ends? What if I look into this? If I look into that? And here comes the surprise. So we start going into other things, and we find a server on the internet, a server by these same people, and we see the structure of the directories. We have all the folders, and within the folders there's all these subdirectories with ZenCart about to be deployed. Okay, not only this, but there was also file.zip, and what was in it? Now let's look at the following one. ZenCart, this is what we find, once again reference to the same thing. Okay, and what did this file have? It had a file like this, payment dot XML. You see all the structure of complete directories, files, CSV with products of the store. They changed them, changed the names, products, everything. Like I said earlier, payment information, the domains, once again, China. And of course, with the server and the database server, the ZenCart version they had deployed was also vulnerable. So once we reach this point, we say, all we need, I need is for you to give me the passwords. Yes. You set this up, well, do it well. So we get to the server that set up all this infrastructure, or part of it, okay? Conclusions. Finally, we got over 11,000 domains that commit fraud. All the information obtained was handed to the authorities in order for them to act. So, conclusion is that nobody is free of being a victim. Cyber criminals also make mistakes. This is something, this detection is something that can be automated, and this is what we did. And this not only happens in the dark areas, but also on the surface, more often than we suspected. Now, let's move on to crimes in the dark. Now let's move to the hidden network, where we need a given client in order to be able to have access. Once we know the best door, I2P, the idea is to get anonymity and privacy. Whenever we speak about Tor, we always think about negative things. It seems that the whole criminal activity focuses in Tor. But what happens in Telegram or WhatsApp? Who uses Telegram? Who uses WhatsApp? Okay, so news like this, things that have happened this year. 50% euro discounts in stores like Mercadona, etc. And the idea was to get information from users in order to sell it, or things like child sex abuse and there's also jihadist propaganda. And it's not just Telegram, because this expands to other services we all know: Google+, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Vimeo. So should we criminalize technology? We don't think we should make it illegal just because of an improper use made of technology. Now let me move on to Tor and hand the floor over to my colleague Luis. Now, after the nice story that Fran told us about a surface investigation, I'm going to tell you about stories in the dark web. So what are we speaking of? According to the statistics, we see that there are around 55 oil and gas services that have been active, and that is the figure that we work with officially speaking. And what lies behind these active domains?
Well, based on the analysis, we carried out over more than 200,000 Tor domains. We reached the conclusion that almost 75% of those services hide web services, just like the ones that we can find on the superficial web. The next we found were SSH open services, and then a residual share of them, which had to do with instantaneous texting messages, email, file sharing services, etc. So this is what Tor is currently using. So within those 75% of services that are using Tor, here we can see several examples of fora that are pretty famous. For example, Elysium was created in 2016. It lasted less than a year because German agents managed to close it because its main subject was, unfortunately, sexual child abuse. Then there were famous markets such as Silk Road or Silk Road Abroad that were closed by several international police forces. The Spanish police forces have collaborated. The themes, the subjects are very varied. For example, in this one we have all sorts of drugs, but there are many other illegal activities in Tor. I don't want to demonize the technology, as Frank was saying, but the truth is that in Tor we found all these sorts of criminal acts: sexual child abuse, jihadist propaganda, sale of weapons, sale of drugs, and all sorts of things. People are using the properties of Tor that provides anonymity in order to do this kind of thing. These are some examples. There are many more, and many services are only content indexes. Since there are no Google-style search engines, they have content indexes. So, well, we've blurred it a little bit here in order to delete names and prevent sensitivities, but the main subject in these fora are sex child abuse. Another common thing in Tor is the exchange of contents. We have these examples, these Satoshi boxes, that meet the supply and the demand. People want to sell, for example, child pornography, pictures that may be of interest for some people, so they upload it to this platform. They set a price in bitcoins, and if people are interested, they just download it and pay in bitcoins. And this is what is currently going on. Now, in relation to what I was saying in the beginning, there are many ransomware panels. This is a crime that takes place on the surface. I'm sure we've suffered a ransomware attack at home or in our company, and the attackers actually meet in the Tor web. In some cases, even the website is for sale. Ransomware is becoming a service. It is now very easy so that you can create your own ransomware panel, and you can get information encrypted. It's really simple. On the right, you have an example, and it's really scary to see how simple it is. There are other illicit activities, for example, jihadist propaganda. Although this isn't the main means these people use to disseminate their contents, as they use other channels, for example, Telegram, WhatsApp, and other social media. Here we can also find this kind of information. And there are markets, as the ones we saw before, markets that sell all sorts of drugs, even referring to very well-known brands. Sale of weapons. There are many fora on the subject. And after analyzing all these different subjects, we can't help but wonder who is behind all these hidden services. Can we really know who is behind these hidden services? Well, yes, we can. How? How can we approach this? How can we locate cyber criminals? Well, we can follow the same procedure as for the social website. We try to find human errors, as people who are operating these services are human beings, and therefore they can make configuration mistakes. And we can also look for faults in the information department's systems. There are no 100% secure information systems, so we can try to verify if the information systems they are using are vulnerable, or maybe we can even find exploits and use them. Let's take a look at some de-anonymation techniques that we've used in some operations. For example, the first one, we can try to look for hidden services that, due to human mistakes, have been exposed both in the Tornet and in the superficial web. And if there has been a connection, we can use services, for example, SODAN, in order to find the real IP where those services are located, and then we can report this to security forces. We did this in one particular occasion, and we were able to disclose a hidden service provider that had more than 2,000 hidden services in Tor. We reported this to the police services, and they caught them because it isn't technically too complicated. Another technique that we can come across, or a technique that we came across actually, was this one. In this case, the Onion service had published its own private key. Every Onion service has a private key in order to operate in Tor, and they had published it in the service. So once we found it, we were able to take over the service and gain control over it. We can replace the original service. This is something that can be easily done and easily automatized. Then there is another technique, which is about finding information in the metadata. In pictures, we can find many metadata that refer to the owner and sometimes a geolocation information. So we decided to do the same in the Tor network. So analyzing all these markets and the million images that there are inside of them, 126,000, we found 229 of them that contained information in their metadata that could be useful for police forces. It's a small amount, but it is a first hint in order to help people operating this kind of services. Now, going beyond the human error, we can look for faults in the information systems used for these services. Here, we realize that they use the same things as in the surface: Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, PHP, BB3, software to set up shops such as WooCommerce or ZenCart. So this is software that is very well known, sometimes free software that is community audited, and vulnerabilities come up to light from time to time. There are also information leaks. Here we can see that Freedom Hosting, the largest server in the dark web, was attacked by Anonymous. And this way they found out that they had more than 10,000 domains in Tor. So this hit Tor very hard. The main subject of all those 10,000 domains, 50% of them, more or less, were devoted to child sex abuse. So thanks to that, more than 800 databases were published with usernames, messages from public and private fora, emails, and hashes from user passwords, hashes that can be cracked. So we analyzed all the information, and what was relevant was reported to our police forces. A few more operations that took place throughout this year had to do with Alpha Bay, Hansa, closing this child pornography forum in Germany. So there is a lot going on in Tor. So what are the conclusions that we draw from these analyses? Well, the hidden web isn't as dark as it looks. We realize that those behind it are normal human beings. They make mistakes, and we can be attentive trying to disclose them. They use the same systems as in the surface, and the systems may have vulnerabilities. So our goal is to look for them in order to disclose them. And then the last conclusion is that the detection of cybercrime may sometimes be automatized. And here is where we take part. So, now what? After all these cases, with all this investigation, how can we help our police forces to arrest people behind these services? Do we increase our resources? Well, we have great police forces in Spain, but they don't have endless resources in order to investigate this kind of thing 100% of the time. So what can we do? Automatize. This is something we are very good at INCIBE. All of these techniques that we've talked about on the deep web and on the surface are potentially automatizable. Since we develop cybersecurity tools, we decided to take all the knowledge that we get from police forces and that we get from our own investigations, and we turn them into tools that make their work easier. So we've developed, for example, this tool that you can see on the screen, a tool that crawls all the services in the Tor web in order to obtain relevant information. Here there are some tags. This filter, the screen was filtered out with the drug subject. So here we have them ordered and categorized so that we can act on these behaviors. Everything is automatic, all the faces. Sometimes at INCIBE, we know how to build this software. Most of us are engineers, but at some point we don't have enough knowledge in order to do it. In this case, we hire specialized research teams that analyze the texts and Tor services, the images, and all the patterns that can be used in order to obtain valuable information. So these teams help us categorize and prioritize. That's why the investigation component is so important at INCIBE. We categorize all sorts of services that are running inside the .onion, inside the hidden services, and we show it in a screen, on a screen such as the one you are now watching. Here we can see whether it is a web service, if it has SSH ports, if there is a file exchange service, if there is an email service behind, a messaging service behind. All the information that we used to obtain manually can be easily automatized and prepared in tools for agents to use. This is the labeling part that I was telling you about before. Here we have almost one category for each type of cybercrime. With the algorithms we got from the research teams, we managed to automatize them all. And now all the areas of action of the police forces can be categorized, as you can watch on your screen. These are some of the labels we have, if we've been able to disclose the service or not. With the techniques that we've mentioned, we can label a service if we are able to find out the IP or the person who is behind the service. If it is in Spain, we also label it. We label it also if it's INCIBE related and if it is vulnerable also. We perform a light search of the vulnerabilities that these sites may have. So, vulnerability detection and disclosure. All these techniques have been automatized to be used in this tool. For example, obtaining internet domains. This is what I was referring to before. We try to find services that have one leg in the superficial leg and another one in the Tor web or net. Since we are crawling the Tor net, we try to obtain any additional valuable information that might be useful. For example, we have this piece of news saying 11 people arrested in Spain for distributing child pornography through WhatsApp. So this happened because we found a link in Tor to WhatsApp. So we followed those links to WhatsApp. It can be WhatsApp or Telegram. And here we can detect illegal activities. We try to obtain all sorts of information, telephone numbers, account numbers, links to Facebook or Twitter, in case we can relate Tor profiles with social media profiles, emails, and all the information that may enable us to disclose the people behind Tor services. And not only the people who have created them, but the people who are using them, because those may be offenders as well. We try to obtain Bitcoin wallets, GitHub links. This is also very important because sometimes evil tools which are used in Tor are being monitored in order to find these tools and the links to Telegram and WhatsApp. What is the goal? The goal we are after is this, to manage to take down as many child pornography services as possible, or to seize firearms, or to perform operations disclosing people behind money laundering operations and things like that. This would be our goal. And how do we do that? We take advantage of the knowledge of our police forces who are experts in analyzing this kind of crimes. We provide our capabilities, we develop tools and automatize these operations with the aim of making a safer cyberspace and a safer world. So thank you very much, and please, if you have questions, do not hesitate to ask them.
Okay. Bueno, chicos, pues muchísimas gracias. ¿Hay?
Thank you so much, guys. There is one question. I have one doubt. Once you know there is a service in Tor and you've been able to violate it, what evidence do you need in order to prosecute somebody? Okay, you disclose that person if you are able to get their IP address. But is that enough to prosecute that person? Is that enough to put them behind bars? Or do you need more information? No, that's not enough. When we get that kind of information that may give rise to an investigation, that information goes to the police services and it's police forces who launch the investigation and go after the person who's operating the service. We don't really violate the services inside Tor. What we do is report. We report there is this service in Tor. We've detected that they use this software, and we've detected that they may have vulnerabilities or exploits, but we don't vulnerate or violate those services as we aren't allowed to do it. But we do report police forces so that they take any measures they consider fit. But do you need what kind of information is needed in order to put these people behind bars? I know that this is something that police forces have to do, not you. Well, imagine we find a nick in a child abuse forum and we are able to link it to a nick on Facebook or Twitter. If there is strong evidence and a strong relationship that they can dig in, well, they cannot investigate the dark web, but they can go to Facebook or Twitter in order to find out more about that profile. And if they find that this could potentially be the same person, that can be useful in order to arrest that person. We try to give them all the valuable information that we believe may be valid to launch investigation. I don't know if I answered your questions. Yes, thank you very much. Any further questions? Thank you.